welcome back to Grandpa Mark's Hobbies and build update number 5 of the Revell's 32 Ford 3-window coupe street rod. Hey, we got a bunch going on here, so let me get the guys out of the way and we'll go over it. It's been a good couple of days down in the shop here, and I'm excited to show everybody what we got going on. Let me move the body out and chassis out, and we'll start with the engine. This little guy, I think, is starting to look decent. We got the fuel lines run. They come off both bowls, tie together, and then run down towards the back because the fuel pump will be in the back on this one. Let me grab a pencil here, and I'll bring this right up as close as I can. I used my 0.3 millimeter solder. I did not paint it, and I just came out and made a 90 and ran it down here and then dropped a 90 off, and then just took another little tiny piece and came out this way, glued that there, put a little dab of Mod Podge on it, and then touched that with my Tamiya's X12, the gold leaf. And I think that made a nice looking brass fitting right there. So there is that. It's hard to see because I did bury it after I was complaining it didn't have it, but I did make a little vacuum advance for this. The vacuum line runs off around and into the front end of the Holly. So we're good there. I made a return spring and attached the linkage. The linkage is just going to run down and into the firewall here. The return spring runs over and it bolts on where the valve cover attaches to the head in the front corner. And then I used Excel's yellow wires to wire up the engine. I'm pretty sure that I'm close to the right firing order, but don't hold me to it. And then I did a little label on the belt, and I put the dipstick on the front. So this is about ready to drop in, and I'm very, very happy with the detail in this thing. I'm gonna put this in the chassis before I glue the headers on, and then we'll figure out how to get that steering linkage to work. But I want those headers, since my exhaust is glued in so tight, that I want the headers to line up right, because there's not going to be enough flex in the exhausts to fudge it if it's not. So there we go. I even added the black well filter, and I remembered why I painted that black. I couldn't figure it out in the last update, but it says gloss black right on the directions. So there we go. That is our engine. Let me put that back in the little homemade wire engine stand, and we'll move to the next. So now we went next with the chassis, and there's a couple of things that I did here that I have to do now just because of the way I want to run the wires. I needed to make sure that stuff was going to be out of the way. So I did add my rear end. I put the wheels on just to give this a little stance off, but I added the rear end and all the rear end suspension, but I drilled a hole right here in the firewall, and that's why I wanted to put all this on, is so I know that, hey, my laundry's done, so that I know that I could run these wires for the lights back through, over and down here, and then I'm still going to run a fuel line over, and I'm going to pass it over the top of that and make this kind of look either like the battery cable or the fuel line. And then I'll run the fuel line up tight to here and just let it disappear. And then after I get all that done and I'm beating on the chassis and finally done beating on the chassis, I'll add my brake lines to run up to the front and to the back. And that'll be easy there. I added the little chrome bars to it, touched up the headers, and remember I said I was going to use that Gundam panel line. Let me grab that real quick. The Gundam marker. Well, I grabbed the gray, but I have a black one just like this. And all I did is I took it and right where that cherry bomb comes into the exhaust pipe. I just hit it on all 4 spots, and that gives that to where the cherry bomb doesn't look like it's just part of, like it's just melted into it. It gives it a nice definition and a break. I did that. I panel lined my fuel firewall, and the last thing I did on the chassis is I detailed the exhaust pipes in the back. Just gave them a little bit of charcoal inside there, and I told you I used my weathering to do the exhaust. And now that everything's in there, you can see how that really adds a lot of color to it. And then when I put the drive shaft in, because I gotta remember to put the drive shaft in while I'm putting the engine in, but see, that's gonna add a bunch of life too, just because of that little bit of highlighting we did on there. So the chassis is going well. The next thing we did is we jumped into the interior and we put it together. But I did a bunch before I put this together. And I got a couple of pictures here. I'll put a few of them right here. This is the door panels, like a before and after shot. I did one door panel, and what I did is I mixed up some of my Tamiya's NATO brown, the XF68, with a lot of water and kind of made a wash. I told you the other day I put a coat of quick shine on all the leather parts, and what that did is that made a seal between the Tamiya paint and the wash. So I was able to put that on there just like a wash, and I took a Q-tip and just kind of wiped it right off until it looked good to me. And I think that gave a real nice leather look to those seats. I mentioned I was going to use black, but that was just because my brain was not functioning the other day. I really meant that I wanted to use a brown, but I didn't have a brown that was close, except for this NATO brown. And I'm glad I used the NATO brown because it gave it a little bit of a red tint like leather kind of does when it's worn. And then on the door panels, I did the same thing. I quick shined it. I used 2 coats of quick shine on the door panels and the seat to give it a good barrier between the Tamiya paint and the other Tamiya paint that I use for the wash. And you can see the inner panel with the upper panels, and it gives it a nice leather panel look in there. So I'm happy as snot with how this came out. It really, really came out nice. Now I'm not done yet, but I wanted to get this in place so I'm not handling it anymore, because I am going to take my pastel, this stuff right here. I'm going to take this brown and I'm going to go over this very, very, very lightly with that brown, and that'll give it a little bit more life, and it'll knock down this shine that you're seeing right now. I do want the shine, but I don't want it this shiny. And that pastel just very lightly brushed on there and then blown off will do that for me. So the leather seats are looking great. I did nothing to the carpet. All that is I painted everything flat black, and then I came back and I painted it all with the dark yellow XF60, and I did that kind of lightly straight down on it. And what that did is that left a little bit of that black shine through and gave it a really nice carpet look in there. It almost looks like I flocked it, but it isn't. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with those pedals. I don't know if you can see them in there or not. I hope so. But I'm really happy with those. I painted those semi-gloss black, and then I came over and I just hit them real light with a dry brush of flat aluminum. And that gave them the ringed look that you see, and it highlighted some of the stuff in there, and I don't know, I'll never get that to where it'll focus in there. It's hitting the steering wheel. But talking of the steering wheel, that came out good. And also, if I can get it in there on a good angle, I'll take a picture of it. You know what? Here's a picture of the gauge cluster. And that came out really nice. And with that, I used my accent real black with a bunch of water. I put it inside. Here, I'll bring it back. I put it inside the gauges, let it dry for just a little bit, but not all the way. And then with a toothpick, I just touched each one of the pieces that I wanted highlighted. And then I came back after that with the Tamiya's, just the Tamiya's gloss red on a toothpick, and I did the needles. So that came out really, really, really good. I'm tickled to death with this interior. This interior is going to sit nicely on that chassis, and it's going to look good. Especially look at I like the hot rod rims on this. This one's a little bit more fancy, I guess, than the last one I did. That one was a little bit more rough, like a rough and ready racer, and this one here is a more refined racer. So the seats are rocking and ready to drop. So they're done. I'm not going to have to mess with anything except for hitting them with that pastels. So then I took and I built my radiator. I put it on, and what this was, if you remember, I painted everything with gloss black. And then I came back, and where the radiator itself was, I'm sorry, this is all semi-gloss black. Where the radiator is right in here, I came back with just black pastels and a brush and brushed it in there. And man, oh man, did that give it some life. And it gave it that texture. You know, how the radiator has that look. And I think it looks really good, except for in this light, I'm super glossy, and it's really not. So when it's sitting up in there, you'll be able to see that it's not. And now we are ready for this to drop. So this is done. The front came out really good. I'm happy with that. And now lastly, and I will let you go, is for I don't know, the fourth or fifth time, I put the fenders in the paint booth. When I tried to put the decals on them that just looked horrible, I put a scratch on both fenders. So I just took them back over there. I wet sanded them this morning. I took them over and just sprayed them with Tamiya's X1 gloss black. And I think that color, I mean, for black and for me and on these panels where they were so rough and everything, that's pretty good. That's not polished. That's nothing but right out of the airbrush. So boy, I'll tell you what, I've had some people say that Neo Echo airbrush that I got is garbage, but you're going to have to prove it to me, because I'm getting fantastic results with it. So I am happy with the results coming from that Neo Echo. It was worth the $40, really. Or I don't even know if it was $40, but it was somewhere around there. But with that, I'm done for the day, and I'm done with the update, and I will let you go. And I want everybody around the world to have a good 4th of July. Most of us have 10. I got 9.5. Let's try to keep it that way with the fireworks and everything. Be safe out there. Have a great weekend. Have a good holiday. And I'll try to get this thing finished before Thursday. So with that, I will let you go.